Hello again, everybody. We are really excited to be here with our panel this morning, and we're going to be talking about ways in which this understanding that we've all been talking about for the last day and a half can enhance the recovery programs that people may be involved in, because we really feel that there's a tremendous benefit when we can sort of mine for the wisdom that surrounds us in the world and really pull out the best that there is. And there's a great deal of it in many of the programs, and particularly from my perspective in the 12-step program. But what this understanding does for us is it sort of highlights the strengths that are there and helps us to sort through where some of the things don't work well. And it gives us tremendous clarity to be able to move through that much more easily. So we're going to start out with Beverly Wilson Hayes, who's going to share a little bit about her experience.
Okay, thank you. I was just 2 points that came to my mind. That connection with 12-step programs and the 3 principles. And one of the things that really got my attention in AA was the promises. And they said that if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we would be amazed before we were halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. And it went on to say some astounding things. Well, how that got enhanced for me with the 3 principles was it taught me about having a quiet mind. And my mind was always racing, you know, fast black. I was just always doing everything and everywhere and had all these different things going on in my mind. So I experienced joy, but I didn't know too much about a quiet mind. And the 3 principles really, really framed that for me, where I got to understand that if I step back from situations and just get quiet inside, that my insights would come, and they would come with an astounding clarity. The second thing that really stood out for me was a chapter in the book called Freedom from Bondage. And in that, they had us pray for the other person the things that we would want for ourselves. And at that time, if I didn't like you and you did something to me, you know, I held on to it for a long time. But I tried it and tried it and tried it and had minimal success. But when I got to the 3 principles and they taught me about psychological innocence and separate realities, then I began to see through a much higher level of clarity. And it also taught me that there was more to it than what I initially learned, and that if I would keep seeking, levels of understanding, that I would see it clearer and clearer. So that taught me to have compassion, you know, because I would be upset at somebody that or did something really cruel, and I would, you know, blame them for that. But I learned to find them not guilty. Matter of fact, I learned to find so many things in my life, people not guilty, because I simply begin to recognize how what I was thinking about when that person came into my life, I got exactly what I was looking for, what I was thinking about. And then later I wanted to add stuff onto it. And on the other hand, if the person was very difficult to deal with, I learned to have compassion for them because I experienced it for 10 or 15 minutes, but they actually lived in that state of mind. And I knew that if they would be able to embrace the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, that they would live in a much sweeter, calmer, kinder reality. So separate realities hand in glove, along with learning about moods and, you know, different stuff that we learn in this program. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want to go over time. That's what I
You're well within time, Beverly, and that was lovely. And if you're happy to stop there, I'm sure people will have questions and feedback at the end. I just really I'm so glad you quoted that bit from the promises, because that's the those sort of astonishing promises for life is what has come true for me through understanding the principles after many years of kind of working hard. And it's so subtle, isn't it, the bit about the difference between you can hear the information, but it's when it kind of penetrates at a deep level, and I think there is something of grace to that, that it's not something that we can control with our intellectual mind. But what a really powerful share that you've done today, both in the last session and this one. And I really thank you for it, and thank you too for what you were saying about the people having knowing within themselves what's right for them, but that in your mind you're clear that this is not an invitation to go back in the drink or drug or anything like that. And I appreciate everything you've shared. It's been a real joy to listen to you today, Beverly. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Barbara, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say at the moment, or whether we should move on now to our next speaker.
Move on to Greg, who can.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that actually Kristen and I met through Greg and Harry Dubritsky, who you'll be hearing from later. You'll be seeing in the resource list, and Greg can tell you a little bit more if he chooses to, about their program that they've done for a number of years called Alcohol Addiction and the Three Principles. So I'm going to turn it over to Greg.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks, Beverly, for sharing about the promises. That was actually a big thing for me when I was in AA. Just like reading through those promises, and I don't know, it's like for the first time in my life, I had a little bit of hope. It's like maybe I can have a sane mind rather than the one that I'm trying to escape all the time. But one of the biggest things that came to me was getting into Bill Wilson's teachings specifically, and reading a lot of his letters that he wrote to people. And his main focus was on the mind. And even on page 23 in the big book, he talked about, how if you never took the first drink or drug, then you would never be off and running. So therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic is in the mind. And that was somebody in AA actually ended up introducing me to Emmett Fox and recommended his book, The Sermon on the Mount. And that was my first introduction to the idea that thoughts had any kind of power, that they would, create our reality. And that it really intrigued me, and I started really looking in that direction. And it was about 3 years later when I came across the three principles. And I went to a local meeting, and this guy, Bob Shell, pulled me aside and I showed up early, like a good AA person, and ended up waiting 45 minutes for everyone to show up because apparently most meetings people don't show up an hour early. But he pulled me aside, and he just kind of downloaded all this information on me about, these three principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, and how they, how we're creating our own reality moment to moment by our thinking, by what we entertain. And it just, first of all, I thought he was kind of crazy because it seemed too simple, but something really resonated with me at a deeper level. And I really got into it, and just like with AA, where I got into Bill Wilson's teachings, because he was the one who had the main insight that started the whole movement, I really got into Sid's teachings. And I found a lot of similarities between what they were talking about. And Sid has a much more simple way of explaining it, in my opinion, a more thorough way. And what it really comes down to for me, and what I've seen, is that addiction is simply a habitual thought pattern. And I know Amy Johnson talks about it in her little book, A Big Change. And going to meetings and being around people who are like-minded and heading in the same direction is a huge help, and it creates a new pattern. And as we create new patterns, the old ones start to drop off. They just naturally replace each other. And Joe actually wrote in the Serenity Principle, one of the big things that stuck with me in that book, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, but said something along the lines of, serenity is our natural state of being when we stop doing the things that take us away from it. And I got to thinking about what that really means. And with Sid's teachings, especially his early ones, he was talking about not giving your energy to the thoughts that you don't want. That's the do nothing part, is just, you didn't have to do anything to make those thoughts appear, and you don't have to do anything to make them disappear. They'll just flow through on their own. There's this natural flow of thought, and that's coming from mind. And we all are in that flow. And through the years, we've trained ourselves to look for certain thoughts and say, oh, that's mine. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. And when those thoughts pop in, we're like, oh, okay, that's me. And then we start giving that thought energy. So when we change that and we start going to, a fellowship like AA, which, fellowship is very vital in this, and we start changing what we're looking for in those thoughts, and we start looking for more positive thoughts and more useful thoughts that pop up, and give them more attention rather than the ones that we've been giving attention to all along. And that really changed a lot for me. And I ended up spending some time actually just really, really paying attention, being aware of which thoughts I was giving energy to. And also through Emmett Fox, he wrote a pamphlet called The 7-Day Mental Diet. And the idea is you go for an entire week without entertaining a single negative thought. It's not that they don't pop into your head, it's just that you don't pay attention to them. You just kind of let them float by. It's like a noisy car going by. You don't have to run out and tell the people to fix their car. You don't have to tell them to stop and turn it off. You just let them drive by. And eventually the noise will be gone. And it took me like 6 months to get through a week, but I did it, and it really was life-changing. And it just brought attention to how much energy I was putting into thoughts that weren't useful. And instead of that, I started giving more energy to the thoughts that are useful. And that, to me, is a lot of what is happening in the fellowship of AA, is that you have people in there who are sharing their experience, strength, and hope. And through that, you're changing which direction you're looking at. And by doing that, you are allowing yourself to relax into it. Like Joe said in that book, that's our natural state of being. It's when we stop entertaining the thoughts that take us away from that we just return to it. It's like a cork, floating on the water. And if we entertain those negative thoughts, we're pulling it under the water. And all we really have to do to let that cork float back up is just let go. Just let it be what it is. And that cork will naturally float to the top. And then we get fresh air, and we get sunlight, and we get insights. And that's the value of a community like that. And I know we don't really have that yet within the 3 principles that much. There are a few areas with meetings popping up. So it's very useful to have a community like what AA has. As far as I'm aware, there's no other fellowship in the world that is as large as that and as accepting as that. And I did some traveling for work while I was in AA and traveled much of the northeastern US. And everywhere I went, I'd find a meeting and everybody would welcome me in. And I could, at least spend a couple hours with people in a more positive environment and just get my thinking back into the space where I needed it to be. So there's definitely a huge value in having that kind of community to surround yourself with. And it doesn't have to be AA. A lot of people might find it in a church or, gardening club or anything like that. And I find a lot of relief now in just simple things like going for a walk or going kayaking or woodworking or singing or playing music. All of those things can be essentially acts of meditation, of a way of quieting the mind. Because when I'm playing music and singing, I can't really be thinking of anything else. If I do, I'm going to mess up the song. I'm going to forget the next chord or forget the next verse or something like that. So it really causes me to focus in on that present moment and be more mindful of where I'm at now. And that really helped change those habits and patterns for me. Because from my experience, it doesn't seem like we can directly get rid of a habit. We have to replace it with a new one. Nature abhors a vacuum. And Amy talked about it in the little book, A Big Change, how we have those neural pathways that we've created. And it kind of makes it easier for those thoughts to just travel through whichever ones we choose. And when we create a new path, sometimes while we're creating that new path, we might go back on the old path for a moment. And as long as we don't beat ourselves up over it, it'll be much easier to get back on the new path. And every time we take that new path instead of the old one, we're reinforcing it and essentially making it an easier path to travel. It's just like taking a new path through the woods. The more you take it, the less the weeds and stuff grow up and the easier it is to pass. And the less we entertain the old path, the more it's going to grow in and grow over and become less easy to travel on. So really with the fellowship and with the community of that's a lot of what is happening, is that creation of the new path. And I really believe that a big part of the key is to be gentle with yourself. If you step back on the old path for a moment, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you jumped on the old path for a moment. I mean, it's no more than that. You get back to the new one and, move forward. And before you know it, that new one will be the normal way for you. So that's really where I'm at with it, and what I've seen from my experience in working with people. And it was an absolute pleasure to do. It's a little over 3 years running that webinar series with Harry Durbitsky, and the connections that I've made through that, and the insights that I had just sharing that, and it was such a beautiful experience, and it just seemed time to pass it along. And Barbara and Christian are doing an awesome job with kind of carrying on that role. So thank you both very much, and look forward to hearing what everybody else has to say.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah,
Christian,
that was.
you want to say anything here?
Yeah, I was just going to say it was lovely, Greg, and a couple of things that really jumped out for me was when you spoke about, the importance of. Sorry, that was your timer. You stopped.
I had one too.
The importance of being gentle with yourself, and just that. I think we talk in this world a lot about you know, recognizing our own innocence and the innocence of others, you know, that people are, and it became very real for me, that idea of people doing the best they can with where they're at, you know, as opposed to just a sort of thing that was said. And I know that you're very gentle with other people and that you do a great deal of service still. And but that reminded me of another thing, that that role of service. You know, you spoke about the insights you had and the learnings you had along the way, and just how important that is, not just from the point of view of giving something, hopefully, or demonstrating something or sharing something with others, but it really is, it always involves seeing more for ourselves, in my experience. And so thanks for all you do, and thanks for a really, you know, a lovely share. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
And when we beat ourselves up over things we do, we're just reinforcing the negative behavior. We're giving it more energy. But if we practice self-love and self-care, then we're practicing a more positive energy and a more useful one. And that's what ultimately leads to the freedom. You know, because it's not really freedom from addiction if you're spending every day fighting it. It should be effortless at some point.
Yeah.
You know, it just becomes the new way. You're not tempted to escape anymore, because you're not filling your head full of all those negative thoughts. You're not reinforcing the behavior that takes you away from your center.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you both. And thanks everybody who helped organize this.
Okay, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Where can I start? I was afraid. I was ashamed. I was alone. I was crazy, so they labeled me. Can't read and write, so I can't find a job. Got a criminal record. And so forth and so forth. But once I got this understanding, I came to start looking at myself, because that's what the free principle does. It's your mind, it's your thoughts, no one else's. And your thoughts do take you to some dark places, and well, my thoughts took me to some dark places. Really dark places. But just knowing that someone saw me in my darkest of days, when I was alone, and actually saw me, because all the time when I was angry and I was lashing out at the world, it wasn't me that was using, it was my ego addiction. I was addicted to fast cars, I was addicted to drugs, I was addicted to cocaine. But how I stumbled along the lines of my addiction, it was because I was lost. Me, Christopher, not my ego. So this understanding made me understand that my ego was the one that was the addict, not me. I'm not a human being. I'm human. Lovely human, and today I'm grateful. I'm not afraid no more. Even though I was a bit nervous coming up, but I'm not afraid no more. So yeah, with the free principle, it goes back to more your mind, consciousness, and well-being, and it all points back to you. The journey you do have, sometimes you feel you're on your own, but you're not alone. If you look amongst the cameras right now, there's someone or far away somewhere that has had the similar experience as you. Probably not through drugs, but they had the similar experience. So you're not alone in your recovery, never alone. In your journey, in your life, you're never alone. But sometimes that's how we feel, because we forget to look at ourselves and forgive ourselves. Sometimes we forgive everyone else, but have you ever took a second and actually forgave yourself for all the wrongs you've done in your life? You know what I mean? You always forgive everyone else, but why? And you just stopped and forgive yourself. And that's what Beyond Recovery did for me. It made me appreciate myself and love me again. And I'm all about sharing that experience, because when I found it in the most horrible place, in prison, where you never think you will feel freedom, but I actually felt mentally free. I wasn't caught up in my mind. I wasn't caught up in the past. I wasn't caught up in the future. I was present. I was actually present, like how I am right now with you. I'm not in my head. I'm present. And thank you very much, Jackie Hollows, for just seeing me for me. You know what I mean? She didn't see the convict. She saw me. And yeah, take off that mask. If you are wearing a mask, take off the mask. And sometimes we walk around with a mask and forget that that's stopping us from lifelong bliss. Just today, you're missing today's life experiences because you're walking around with a mask on your face. Take that off. You let me see you, so as you can see me, Christopher. And I would like to carry on sharing that out. Like, as Maisie said yesterday, we're not broken. We're all superheroes in our own ways, just sharing our love to the world. You know what I mean? Our own ways. We are superheroes. We are superheroes, and don't forget that. Don't even forget to have fun, because as we get younger, we don't get older, we get younger. Look at Benjamin Button, he got younger, innit? He didn't get older, he got younger. So as we get younger, let's just never forget to have fun, you know, never forget to have fun. And that's sometimes we forget the simplicity of life, to just have fun. Enjoy yourself, you know, enjoy yourself. And that's what all these other programs need, to just let me see you as Beyond Recovery saw me, and I saw them for what they are. They didn't come from a textbook. They left everything what they did know outside the door and came with open arms and with lovely warm arms. And I'm here today for that. And if I can spread the word back on, I will, and I am doing that. I will gonna keep on doing that, because we're not broken. We're never broken. We're never broken. And funny enough, with this understanding, I wouldn't have. It was a mad weekend about 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, and it was a normal working day, but still, we live in the ghetto as the media portrays it, but I just live in London. Going to work, me and my friend Omar Wilson, and as we're going to work, we're removal drivers, so we're moving someone from one destination to another destination. We're driving along, and yeah, police car drive past us. Didn't think nothing of it. We're going to work. Didn't think nothing of it. Carry on driving, and little did we know, the police car still following us. Anyway, get to the destination point. Customers there, police are there. It's embarrassing. We sorted that issue out. Nothing's wrong. They thought there was something wrong with the car, no insurance, but the car's fully insured. We're in South London right now, and it's a friend of mine from my old, from prison, but we decided to go and meet him. As we're going to meet him, a strange occurrence just happened. I don't know why, but something happened. We got there, and he gets up. No. Our friends there, and someone, a little boy from their state runs towards my friend we were going to see, and he's saying, "Oh, one of the boys got stabbed like up the road." What? Couldn't believe it. We're still walking because we wanted to walk to the shop, so we're walking towards there, and literally we see a body laying there. The first thought I don't think it was like in any other situation. I don't know, but Omar's first initial reaction was to go there and just comfort them and just see what he can do. I don't know what went over me, but there's people in tears, crying, and the ambulance is still not here. And then the boys' friends start coming, and there was one of them that was really enraged, and he was blaming everything on him. Why wasn't he here? Why wasn't he here? Da, 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 da. And I could see where his mind was going. I don't know what came over me though, but all I could do in that moment is go over there and put my hands around him and cuddle him. And don't tell me why I did it, but I did it. That was like my first reaction, to just go there and put my hands around him and make sure that, just to let him know he'd be all right. Everything's all right. You know what I mean? You can cry. You know what I mean? You can cry. You don't have to hold that ego. Once again, his ego was there talking about revenge. You know what I mean? Like, but right now, your friend needs you to just simmer down and just be patient. Because I've been there before. I've lost friends. I've lost friends to drugs, to crime, and with this understanding, I've come to love everyone again and love myself again. And as addicts, we forget to, not even as addicts, as whatever you decide to go and run away to, we always go and run away to something and put blames to it or put labels to it. Nah, forget the labels. Like truly take time with yourself. We forget that we are the controllers of our destiny. We own this beautiful, magnificent body and the mind that we have got control over. As long as you fully get to grips with your mind, it's not easy. I do come across days where but I know as long as I stay present, it's gonna go away. That feeling will go away. Don't add anything to it, or don't try and do something about it. Just sit with it. And it took me a while to get to that point of just sitting with it. It really has, but it's helped me calm down a lot, because once again, I was nervous before coming here. I was all in my head. But yeah, talking to the people, talking to yous lot, not the doctor, not the teacher, whatever labels you have got on yourself. When we're talking with this understanding, we're talking within ourselves, and it's not something for you to reply back to. It's something you will feel, and when you do have that feeling, it's true, and you can't deny the truth. The truth always points back to that heart. The truth always points to the heart, and the truth will set you free. I don't even know how long I've got left, but I can still talk if I still got time. Or any questions, I don't know.
You've got a minute.
Well, this moment I would just like to shout out Beyond Recovery, Beyond Truth. I'm a co-founder of Mama J, Queen Goddess, Liliana, Debbie, Money Penny, Papa Hollows, the whole Beyond Recovery Truth. My fellow humans who are struggling, you're not struggling alone. We're all together on this magnificent journey, and it's an adventure. It's an adventure when you still have fun with it. It's an adventure. So yeah, I love you guys, and yeah, leave it there. One love.
Chris, thank you so much. I was so touched when you were sharing your story of just responding to that guy, of just a level of humanity and love, and just going with that, and not putting up a mask. I think that there is something that's just that's so simple about that, and that we are all here without masks, and learning more about this amazing understanding that Sid kind of stumbled across, and thank you. It's really been, it's a pleasure to listen to you, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me have this space.
Thank you. You know, just one
Sorry,
thing.
thank you.
Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Joe. Thank you, Joe. Sorry, thank you, Joe. Mr. Joe, sorry, I forgot. Sorry, mate. Thank you very much. Love you, Mr. Joe. Thank you.
We all share that that emotion, Chris. That's great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, you know, as you're talking about love, you know, in my practice, I realized that love and compassion were really the only two things that ever healed anybody out of what I did, you know. And I think that's really the chord for all of us, that in any kind of recovery program, whatever it is, when someone who's hurting and in pain can walk through the door and feel that love, that's where the transformation really begins, I believe. So thank you for saying that and bringing that up. So next is Amir.
Man, why you guys got to put me after Christopher? What am I supposed to do after that? Like at this point, we just do a round of applause and get out of here, because that was amazing. And I have to say, my name is Amir, and before I talk about something, I do want to point out something about what stood out with Christopher. I was in a recovery center for 4.5 years, and those kind of experiences that Christopher said, people that have never heard of the principles, that have been in life's worst circumstances, and they come out on the other side and share things like literally, like it's like Sydney Banks comes through them, or like this energy comes through them, where you're going, where the hell has this guy been, and how come he hasn't been teaching me this whole time, right? And I want to give you guys a secret. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. When I was at a recovery center for 4.5 years, I wasn't there to teach them. They're actually there to teach me. That's why I went there. Because what I realized is, I thought I knew the principles, but boy, when people see the principles without any advanced understanding of the principles, and they share, where are they sharing from? They share from the heart. And when they share from that heart, something different comes out. You know, it's not the typical metaphors we hear in the principles communities. It's not the, you know, mind conscious. It's like something comes out of them and you're like, that is the principles, folks. That's the principles in real time. And that's why I love listening to Christopher and the people that were in my community, because that was what got me to truly understand the power of this. And I want to take you guys back 5 years ago, when I was at my first day at the recovery center. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of a background on me, I do not have a degree in psychology, a degree in counseling. I actually own restaurants in San Diego, California. That's what I do. I flip chickens for a living, right? And so they threw me in on the first day. It was at 8:45. I will never forget. It was 8:45 in the morning. Most of the people that are in that room are barely getting up. They're exhausted. I'm in there, and they said, and I thought they're going to get me in there with one of the counselors and we're going to go back and forth. They just threw me into the lions, basically. I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? And I don't have a background in this. The only thing I had was a little bit of an understanding of the principles. That was it. And, you know, I used to do a lot of these talks. I mean, Catherine's here. I see Wendy. I know a lot of you guys that know me from a while back. I actually feel a lot better here because it's been so long that I've done this. I'm a little bit nervous today. Like, I didn't think I would say this. I used to do weekly Zoom meetings. Catherine knows, Wendy knows, I've done this so many times, and I'm actually nervous today. And I actually love that. So I'm going to take you guys back 5 years ago when I went into the room, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly what I said. I looked around the room and I said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Amir. I don't have a background in recovery. I never used drugs. I don't really know what you guys' specific situations are with your backgrounds. I own restaurants here in San Diego, and everyone is looking at me like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Why is he here? Right? And I can see it. And I said, but I have one thing that I'm here with, is that I experience the world exactly as you guys do. So today I'm not going to talk about our psychology, because there's psychologists that can do better things, talk about that better than me. But the one thing I have going for me that I know you guys all do too is your humanity. That you can't go to school for. We have a soul. That's something you can't train. So as long as we're on the same page that today we're going to be talking about our humanity and our soul, we're going to see something different, folks. So today you get to take the day off from being an alcoholic, from a user, from being a deadbeat dad, from you not speaking to your family for a couple of years. You can take the day off from that, because today we're going to talk about the creation, the moment to moment capacity that we have to create. And no matter what you've seen in your past, no matter what you've done, that does not go away. That's a God-given right to us, no matter what we do in our life. Now, if you guys want to have that conversation, raise your hands. And I couldn't believe it. Everyone raised their hands. And that was the moment I said, these are my people. These are my people. Because see, when people are in recovery, they don't have time for bullshit. They don't want to hear all like the, let's get, today it's going to be a great day. Like they want to see something raw and real, and the principles gets as raw as real as it can get, because it's about how life works. And when people get a glimpse of that and they actually see what they're made of, man, there is no turning back, folks. There's no turning back. And then you get people like Christopher that come out and you see their aliveness, right? And so for me, that's what I live for. To see people come out of a shell that they made up to begin with and turn around and go, wait, this was make-believe? You mean I'm made from the same source as God? You mean I'm made from the same source of this creation? I'm part of this thing? And I dwindled myself down to just a incompetent person. I dwindled myself down to a deadbeat dad. I dwindled myself to this guy that's just good for using drugs. That's it. I can save the world, folks. I can save myself. I mean, I had a guy literally run out my room on the first day, and I'm like, where are you going? He goes, I'm free. I'll never forget it. He said, I'm free. And I went, holy shit, I hope I didn't mess people up here. I don't know what's going on. And literally, because it's kind of crazy, because you literally become crazy in a sense that, like, it's like I have a 4-year-old daughter, and all of a sudden she goes downstairs and there's 10 gifts waiting for her. She's going to go, what is this for? It's like, well, these were for you, right? And that's what I've seen with the principals. They come into my groups now and they see their gifts. And all I do for that hour, I say, folks, these gifts are for you. You just didn't see it. That's all. That's okay. And you know what's cool? You might come back tomorrow and go, I don't have any gifts, and I'm just going to remind you, oh, they're right there. These gifts are for you. And we're going to forget, and every moment, you're going to realize you still have that gift. The gift to see. The principle of thought, right? The principle of consciousness. This is my homie right here. If you guys know who this guy is, right? He let us see something. He gave us a glimpse, right? And he didn't actually let us see it. He allowed us to see it for ourselves, because we already knew. Folks, we already knew. We just didn't realize it. And that's why when I go and someone says, well, what do you do with someone that has 12 years of using? I say, I don't care. Well, what about 15 years? Well, that doesn't matter. What if they've been doing it for their lifetime? So what? It means nothing to me. Because the same capacity of love, creation, and that heart has been within them the whole time. You don't believe me? Spend 10 minutes with Christopher. You don't believe me? Spend 20 minutes with the guys in my group and the ladies in my group. And if you don't believe me, spend some time with yourself in that space and see what you see for yourself. and magic and miracles will happen. Folks, I love you guys. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thanks, Amir. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, you just reminded me of something I was hearing, rehearing something with a colleague, and I reheard it again with you today. And this colleague and I were doing a training together, and he said to the group something, and just put it this way. He said, when it all what it all comes down to is you just need to know one thing, that who you are at essence is not up for grabs, and that gave me shivers, and what you were touching on did the same thing. So thanks so much, Amir. Thank you for everything you shared.
I'm speechless, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Doesn't happen often. Thank you.
And our last speaker, last but not least, is Ned. Ned, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ned Lewis. Boy, wow. The energy, the love. Are you guys feeling it? That's what this is all about. It's that simple. Before I was introduced to the three principles, I was the cynical, analytical, negative banker, successful, but not happy. And so I went looking for that happiness out there, and I found the crack pipe, and I lost everything. I like to say it's the universe or God conspiring to show me what I had by taking it all away. And then I went to treatment. And when I was at treatment, Mary White, who's in here somewhere, introduced me to the three principles. I had no clue what the hell she was talking about. But she planted a seed, and that seed took root, and it's blossomed, and it keeps blossoming, and it keeps growing. It's now, I think, a small tree. And it's changed my life. It saved my life. People at that treatment center, they were addicted to all sorts of substances and activities. There was even one guy there who said he was addicted to brake fluid, but he said he could stop anytime. Just seeing if you're listening. Anyways, health realization is what I was introduced to. It's now called the three principles. The health we're talking about is our mental well-being, peace of mind. In recovery, we call it serenity. And it's available to us all of the time. And I'm not there all the time, but just knowing that it's there is enough. Enough is a word I didn't know in active addiction. More was the word I concentrated on then. The three principles taught me what enough was. Today, it's not so much the state of the world that makes up my reality as it is the state of my mind that makes up my world. The three principles explain why every philosophy, religion, modality, group, why they work when they work and why they don't when they don't. Sid said something to the effect that when our hearts and our minds are open, whatever book falls off the shelf, we can find our truth in it. And I think it's the same with those groups. Einstein said something to the effect, and I paraphrase, that we have this great tool, this analytical computer brain, the analytical mind. And it's the greatest tool ever invented. And then we have wisdom. We have the intuitive mind, instinct, common sense, street smarts, whatever you want to call it. He said, we've created a society that worships the tool and ignores the master. This has taught me to listen to the master. As a cynical analytical banker, that's all I did is spend my time up here. I call this the attorney because it can argue better than a Supreme Court judge. It's always trying to convince me. Beverly talked about this comment yesterday about whether we could go back and use drugs or alcohol in moderation after we get to know the three principles. And I've heard that question brought up before. And I realize that I have that question. It comes from my attorney, who's always, I mean, I'm clean now for over 11 years, but I'm still arguing ways that I can still get high and use. This is always trying to figure out a way. My heart, my wisdom, it tells me, Ned, you can never use drugs or alcohol again. And when I'm in this state of well-being, this great, it's such a wonderful feeling that I have no desire to throw that away, no desire to risk that whatsoever. You will not be asking that question if you're in that state of well-being. If you are asking the question, wonder where your head might be. The three principles mesh super well with all forms of recovery. I'm a 12-stepper today. I also facilitate a three principle support group. I do that every week, and I've done that for over 10 years. I had less than a year when I started this group. Had no idea what the heck I was talking about. But you guys have got the feeling today. You got this feeling in your heart. And that's all you need to bring to anybody else to share this understanding. I still don't know what this understanding is. I get glimpses, I get tastes and touches. I get to hang around with you guys and get this feeling. And that's enough. This is kind of how it works for me. We talk about, in the three principles, we're not broken. And the part of me that's not broken is the essence of my true self. I like to say it's this part in here. This Ned is pure love. He's pure potential. He's eternal, he's infinite. He never gets angry or judgmental. He's never negative. He's never tired. He's always beautiful. He's always loving. I love that little Ned. He is such a great guy. You know, but this spirit, this essence of me has to live in this physical body. Albeit a very handsome and virile model, it's flawed. It gets tired. It gets sick. It gets hungry, it gets scared, it gets depressed. And so it comes up with coping mechanisms. The attorney figures out a way to get myself to feel better. And so I created some situations because of unhealthy, dysfunctional, insecure thinking that got in the way. And so I needed to go to groups of people. When I was early in my recovery, it was very important for me to have that social interaction, to be able to network with like-minded people, to have the encouragement on a regular basis that I needed to help other people. I think that's the key to recovery is giving back what we've been given. To be accountable. These meetings, I still go to on a regular basis. And like it's been said numerous times over, it's all the same language. It's love, it's acceptance, it's appreciation, it's loving what is, it's being in this moment. This is how it works for me. Yeah, I get caught up in the attorney. You know, when I first started going to meetings, I started analyzing the piss out of them. You know, I would, look at the guy who was hijacking the meeting. 12-step groups have a lot of sayings, and some of them would drive me nuts. There was one I hated in particular that said, you only have to change one thing, everything. And I hated that because there are things about me I like. But then the three principles has taught me that if I change my thinking, if I change my perception, the whole world changes. And so it's kinder and gentler. It's easier. The programs I go to tend to focus on the physical malady of the results or the symptoms of my thinking. The three principles focuses on my spiritual well-being, which was there before my addiction and which will be there after my addiction is gone. In the 12-step programs, they say you have a spiritual awakening. Three principles, we might call that an insight. You know, for me, it's a shift. I didn't have the, as Jacqueline would say, the moment, you know, but I've had a number of shifts in the way I think. And you have to have a change in how you see things to recover, to change your behaviors. And then you have to change your behaviors. These groups seriously were needed for me to build new neural pathways in my head. So I didn't go back and revisit them. I can't afford to test the waters of relapse. You know, the first time I can get up and brush myself off and I'm going to be okay. The next time it's going to be twice as hard. The next time 5 times as hard. The next time 14 times as hard. That's my math. You know, that's Ned science. It's not accurate, but you get what I'm saying. That's why we like to say, listen for the feeling, not to my science. It's questionable. You know, I've been blessed to be able to merge both of these understandings together. And what I found, I do these weekly support groups, and a number of people do both, other meetings and this. And I find the success ratio of people who do both is much higher in recovery and much higher in life. Both programs, the 12-step program and the three principles understanding, are about building a better life. You know, they're not about quitting something. They're about having a good life. And when you have a good life, you no longer you're feeling good, and you're no longer looking for that good feeling out there in the pill or the bottle or the pipe. It's magic, it's miracles. A cynical, analytical banker talking about magic and miracles. I wouldn't have dreamt of that years ago. Today, I believe in all of that stuff. I had tunnel vision. And when I was introduced to the three principles, those blinders came off, and I get to see all of that, all of the possibilities. I could talk to you guys for the rest of the afternoon, but I would like to leave a little time in case we do have any time for questions to all these wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. That was really, really wonderful. Thank you. It was just great to hear your story. It's the first time I've had. We obviously had some chat in advance, but it was just a privilege to listen to you, and I'm so impressed with what you're doing there in Minneapolis, and I hope to get a chance to visit in person at some point. And lovely, you know, I just what you said, and I think what Beverly said and others have touched on about that the three principles meshes very well with any other treatment program or recovery program. It's yeah, that was great. And actually, you could have gone on for longer, because we have got tons of time for questions. So thank you.
Good. One thing I would just, one thing I forgot that I would like to add is, if anybody is interested in starting a support group, contact me. There will be information available. We have some agendas. We have some materials we use as catalysts for discussions. It's been a big gift to me to be able to do that. And I think it would be to anybody else who wanted to try that. Thank you.
And those,
Brilliant.
just so you know, those are in the resource packet that'll be coming out with the recording link this next week. So thank you for that, Ned. So
that reminds me,
yeah,
Brooke, maybe we can make available to the group, with people's permission, their emails if people want to contact anyone here who they've heard or who they've wanted to get to know or check in for resources in your area. We'll think about that, but I think that might be a really good thing to do.
I think so too. I think so too. Anybody who's responded to me with resources, I've tried to include an email, but if you would like that, or unless you have a problem with it, we'll go ahead and do that. So, yeah. So
Um,
I just wanted to say real quickly before we go to questions, you know, one of the things for me with the 12-step model or with any kind of other recovery program, as somebody said, you know, and I think this was Joe's line, is that it makes sense. It shows us why it works when it works and why it doesn't when it doesn't, you know, because, and our minds become better and better at being able to pick out, oh, that's what that means. So I just wanted to say one thing, like, the idea in AA, or the saying in AA, that they're stinking thinking. You know, so many of my people who were addicts thought, well, I am an alcoholic, so I have stinking thinking. And it's kind of like a life sentence. Or, you know, I can't get well because I have this issue. And when you see, oh, wait a minute, the principles sort of fine tune that. They create this really much deeper of an understanding of what that means. Oh, I have stinking thinking at this moment that is skewing my ability to see clearly. Right. So once you see, oh, okay, this isn't a life sentence now. This is just really pointing towards where our experience is coming from. And that's absolutely changeable. Or, and just one last thing that sort of came to me this morning, the idea that we are powerless over alcohol. Well, we're powerless in the state of mind that we're in that makes it feel like we're powerless. And what this understanding does is it helps to see how we can gain our power, where the power actually comes from, and that's always been available to us. And that is so extraordinary, you know. So again, you're taking these things that look true at a certain level of understanding, and this 3 principles just clarify it in ways that I think make so much sense to people and give us such freedom. So that's my spiel. Thanks.
Cool, Barbara. I'm noticing already that people are asking for the information, Ned. So Joe and Ned, goodness knows what we might have started here. That's great. Absolutely great. It seems to me we've Joe, you can keep me right here, but we've actually got about half an hour, so we'd welcome questions from anybody in relation to this panel or the previous panel. I think that's, you know, we've got plenty of time, and several people have their hands up, so I'm going to give them a chance. First, Trevor, and then Jean. So, Trevor, over to you. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, okay. I think I've done that.
Yeah, you have.
Can I hear anything? Can you hear me okay? I can't hear you for some reason.
Yes.
That's better. Okay. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I guess the thing on my mind was just listening to Ned about how, you know, the sort of the blend of the 3 principles and the 12 steps. A couple of years ago, I started going to church, and they were running a Bible-based 12-step program, and it sort of fell apart. There wasn't any take up on it. It didn't really help people. It really struggled, and I struggled as well because I was learning about the 3 principles, and I was like, all right, okay, so they're saying that thought comes from one source, and they're pretty, you know, definitive about that it's like it's some sort of evil thing. And then the 3 principles saying it just comes from nowhere. So I got really confused. And so what I wanted to sort of put to Ned was, how did he, you know, I know, I'm not really sure what the question is. Basically, can I go to church and still do 3 principles and go to heaven? I suppose is the question that I'm trying to ask. Am I breaking the law by doing 3 principles instead of church? It felt weird. It felt weird. It was like, okay, like felt like a cuckoo in the nest, you know, sort of waiting to take over the nest a little bit. And there was a bit of me that was like, wow, if people just aren't finding this helpful, then maybe they would find the 3 principles helpful. And I used to share just little bits of stories that are, you know, the best that I could, and get into some quite nice conversations. But I would say they would be sidebar conversations rather than you know, like with a focus of, okay, let's learn the principles sort of thing. So yeah, it's a weird one. Like, yeah, church-led groups versus three principles. You know, like, and I think a lot of people actually have asked that as well. You know, like particularly, I mean, like if you know, this is going to sound bad, but you would be shocked at how many Christians have really bad habits. I can't name names, but I would say like about. It's surprising, like what people deal with, you know, behind closed doors. So, if you can pick anything out of that, Ned,
Trevor,
are you
thank
still
I love-
gone to sleep?
I love that you brought that up. The three principles have me looking at what's right about any understanding, any philosophy, any religion. You know, the analytical, cynical banker always tore these things apart, looked for what was wrong. I was raised in a strict Catholic family for 12 years of Catholic education, and I rebelled about it, looking for the inconsistencies, the inaccuracies, the discrepancies in the dogma, in the scriptures, and I could find it. After I was introduced to the three principles, I found my way back to church. And today I see spiritual growth. I see community. I see love. I don't understand God, you know, any more than I understand the three principles. But I look for what's right in anything. So when I go to a 12-step meeting, I'm now looking for what's right in the meeting, not for what's wrong. When I go to church, I can see what is positive and helpful and healthy in that place. I don't focus on the negative or the fearful or the things that don't resonate with my truth. And so any understanding with this, it enhances it. It brings it together. Does that help?
Yeah, tremendously. Yeah, I mean, I realized that I was comparing with the attorney, you know, like probably sitting in the group going, oh, well, that's different from the principles, and this is, oh, I'm not sure about this, and actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That what's helpful and what's true is you know, orientating myself in that position. So yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Cheers.
Could I comment on Trevor's question?
Yeah, sure, Joe.
Yeah, I remember something that Sydney Banks would often say in his talks, and that was that truth is buried in or lies in the heart of every human being who ever existed. And he also said it's at the heart, truth is at the heart of every religion, every philosophy, every self-help group. But it gets covered up with dogma, with our thought system, you know, with our belief system. But it doesn't mean it's not there. And I've seen so often in our community, innocently, we've judged everything that isn't pure three principles, instead of turning the lens around a different way and seeing what's true in what they're saying. And when you see what's true, you don't judge. And when you don't judge, you've got a nicer feeling to live in first. And secondly, you're more attractive. But if you're judging, you're just putting out in your own self negativity in other people. So I just think that's a correction that we've needed in our community of teachers of the three principles, is to be more inclusive and embracing. And this kind of the first time we've ever really talked about self-help support groups in the three principles conference. It's always, oh, don't do that. You know, that doesn't have the principles purely. But what we're pointing to here, and I just love what everyone said, you know, each of the speakers, Christian and Barbara, and all of the people on the panel, is to show that common thread of understanding and truth of the principle. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. You just have to have eyes to see it and an open mind. So that's it.
In our
Thanks,
book, we
Joe.
refer to it as the bridge of wisdom, that what the joiner is between all of it is the wisdom, and it's all around us.
Can add one more thing too.
Thanks, guys. I'm loving the conference, by the way. It's superb. I love that it's focused on recovery. I just think, the time has come to just be proud of, like how people can change and transform us. It is miracles. It's amazing. And yeah, really proud to be here. Really enjoying it.
Can I quickly add something to that, please?
Sure.
Basically, even Joe Bailey touched on it in terms of religious groups and other NA groups. But if you just keep it simple and you go with the feeling's always truth. The feeling what you feel in church, or the feeling when you speak about God, that feeling, because I've come from a Christian background as well, and that feeling, I feel it when I have my Saturday conversations with the Beyond Recovery team. Like, it's with feelings, and sometimes the barrier goes away when someone coming from a religious background, and example me, like when I try and talk to my older uncles now, they always bring it back to religion. If you take that away and just keep it simple, what I feel is the same way you feel. Just keep it like literally simple. It's that feeling. You could never deny that feeling. That feeling was of a higher power or whatever, but that feeling, it's the same feeling. The same feeling. The same feeling when you feel that God is, when the sun's beating down on you. That feeling there, that's, if you want to call it God, whatever, but it's the same feeling. And let's not complicate it. Let's just keep it simple. Just go with the feeling.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. We've actually got a sort of queue of questions coming at us from all different directions. Jean had her hand up, but she seems to have disappeared. And if I'm wrong about that, Jean, just shout out now, because the next person with their hand up is Zaneb. Am I saying that rightly? You're next, and then I've got Lisa, and then somebody else. I'll come back to.
Hello, everyone.
Zaneb. Hi.
Yeah, it's Zaneb.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The question I have is around, okay, I want to set up a recovery group, right? So I can see from what you've all said is, one, it could just be a group. I go share the 3 Ps, and people get their insights and that opportunity to really get back to their real selves and overcome the addiction. Or it could be in maybe an established group who have some sort of process. Like here in Nigeria, I'm speaking from Nigeria, we actually do not have all these support groups that you're talking about. It's even in the mainstream psychology, psychiatry, and all that, it isn't that popular. Very, very few of them actually exist. So if, for instance, I found one, then I could support by going to share the 3 Ps. Sorry, I actually there's a blackout, so that's why my light just goes on and off. So I want to do this, and my intention is actually directed more at pornography addiction, because we have a very serious case of it here. So I'm just looking at how best to do this, from those 2 perspectives. I know Amir has basically, it looks like just shared the 3 Ps, and who is it? I forgot. Ned, was it Ned? Yeah, I think he's talked about merging the 2 and all that. So I just wanted a bit more clarification around that. Thank you very much.
I wonder if it might be helpful, Peter, if those guys, if you could put them in a chat room, because that seems like a kind of specific conversation. Would that be helpful to you? to have a conversation with Ned and Amir?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay,
that would be
so Peter, through the marvels of technology, can just whisk you all off into a little private chat room.
You know,
Yeah,
Barbara,
go
what I
ahead.
suggest, you know, they may want to not miss this during the break, which is an hour and a half. We
Okay.
could do that. And anybody who's interested in starting a support group, maybe Ned, if you're free, you could meet with them. And anybody else, Greg or whoever has done, or Amir has done support groups along this understanding. You all could have a conversation about that and help each other out.
Good suggestion. Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thanks. Excellent. So our next person is Lisa and then Mary Britt. These people have been had their hands up one way or another. So Lisa, are you able to unmute yourself and come in? It's Lisa, no second name, I believe. Okay, I wonder if maybe,
Yeah.
oh, hi, Lisa, right.
Hi, this has been absolutely fabulous, and I'm learning a little bit all the time here. I'm currently in graduate school at Metro State for the co-occurring counseling program in my third year, and I'm an alcohol and drug counselor for women and children in rural Minnesota. And it's been an amazing journey for me. I started really late. I didn't go to college until I was 50. But there's a plan. And I think the 3 principles is part of that plan because it's starting to make sense to me. My question first is, Ned, I would really be interested, since you're in Minneapolis, it's not that far away. I'd like to attend some groups and then try and translate that into the groups that I instruct at the treatment center. And then second, so many of you are authors. I was hoping to get a list of all the probably fabulous books that are out there on the 3 principles. Serenity Principle, of course, I got years ago, but the rest of them, I would really love to see a list and be able to access that if you're sending something out.
We are. It will go out next week with the way that you can access the recordings. There's a long list of all the resources, all the books, all the groups, all the different things that people are doing. So that you'll have that in your hands next week.
Wonderful. That's really all I have.
Thank you. Thanks very much. We've got 2 more people who've already raised their hands. So, and quite a lot of interest in the chat group about support groups. So, Mary, you are next. And oh, yeah, so 3 more people. And I think that's probably as much as we're going to get in if we even get that far. So, Mary, you're next. Mary, are you able to unmute yourself? Maybe Mary's.
Now, here we go.
Good. Hi.
Thank you, Christian. You guys, this has been absolutely wonderful. For every speaker, the people yesterday, they're nuggets. I mean, I took notes. You know what I wanted. I'm Mary Britt. Britt's my middle name. My last name's Delaney. I grew up in St. Paul, and I was a recovering alcoholic for many years. And this wonderful recovery mecca, and I feel for that gal. She can't do in did she say Nigeria? Where is that? Where she said? My gosh, they kept me alive. But guys, again, I was in recovery for many, many years. And just over 5 years ago on a Saturday night, I landed down at Ned's meeting. And I'm somebody that I would say, yes, I benefited from Alcoholics Anonymous big time in the fellowship. And there were so many people that helped me along the way. you know, I want to say that they give out the good feeling too, the energy. Chris was just talking about the energy. I'm stumbling around a little, but I'll try to be quick. I have so many feelings, but so there was a lot of good feeling that I got from others before I understood the inside out. Okay, that helped me. Affirmations, a lot of things helped me before I made it here 5 years ago. And that night, what I heard was, we all have innate well-being. And I just looked it up in my dictionary that's on the floor. Innate means present from birth. Part of my problem was that when I was 20 years old, I had what was termed a severe psychotic break. And that always kept me, that I'm a little different than these other alcoholics. I was a teenage alcoholic, blah, 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 but I'm a little different. I'm a little unique. Well, I heard that night, that I have innate well-being, and it's like, oh, I am okay, and I always have been okay. So my journey's only gotten healthier since then. So, you know, and then I finally had the courage one day to call Joe Bailey, and gosh darn, it was Joe Bailey and Associates. And I thought, oh, I'm going to get a secretary or something. And Joe answers the phone, which was really fun for me. And of course, I've gotten to know Joe. And, you know, I was thinking about it. What have I really learned from Joe? Again, I'm all Irish. And you know, I've talked to him about losing my temper. And he's like, you know what, Mary, you're an Irish woman. It's okay for you to lose your temper. And you know what? That has been so helpful for me, Joe, because it's like it's like, oh, I'm okay even if I get mad. And so that's another thing. Joe went out of town and he introduced me to Mavis. So I got to know that wonderful woman. And you know what? I called her a couple of months ago and I wanted to go on about some kind of drama thing. And she's like, you know what, Mary, can I tell you this story? So she interrupted me and she told me a story, and Mavis, it would be wonderful if you shared yourself about a man who a chicken gets stuck in his house. And you know, by the time she got the time she got done telling me the story about the chicken, it was like time to hang up. It was like, oh, thanks, Mavis. And you know, whatever my drama was, it didn't matter anymore. So I just loved that. You know, again, so mthere's things, and even what Chris said, you know, I love what, you know, take off our masks. That's what Chris said a little while ago. But there's so many things yesterday, you know, and I want to say too, just one more little shout out here. You know, last summer, Ned had a little conference and he had it with Ted. And so I got together with Ted and the group on a Friday afternoon and a Saturday, and that's the only time I've ever seen Ted. But you know, I don't know Ted, but all I know is that it's the energy. And you know, it's the wonderful energy that attracts me. And again, there was the attraction with the elders in the St. Paul recovery community that I'm still very, very grateful for. So, and to wrap up, something that I have done is gone to detox. And I just went last Wednesday, and lo and behold, there was a guy that was familiar to me, and he's been in and out of treatment. He was going back up to Hazelton. He's been to Hazelton. He's been to the retreat. And, you know, and I didn't ask him, you know, why'd you use it again or something. But, you know, at one point, something that worked for me is I turned and I looked at him and I told him, I said, you're worth it. You're worth it to get sober. You know, and anyway, I want to be able to share this message. I sure wish that three principles could gain more of a fellowship. But anyway, I was nervous to share, of course, you guys know me, but I love, you know, and so many of my friends here now in this community, and thank you for letting me have a couple of minutes.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you for everything that you shared. Appreciate it.
We're all works in progress.
Yeah, we are indeed. Lovely. We've got two more people who've had their hands up. So we're just coming to it into time. I'm going to try and squeeze them in if possible. Kimmy, you're next, and then Anne Ferguson. I think I've got that the right way around. Apologies if I don't, but you're both up. You're both up anyway. Kimmy first. Kimmy, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am now.
Oh, cool.
Hi, I'm Kimi.
Hi.
I have really appreciated everything I've heard so far. Thank you all so much. My question is really specific, and one thing I really appreciate and value about AA and the 12 Steps is the transparency of how the organization operates and how they handle money and this kind of thing. I just find that, like, in building a whole life for myself, right? Like thinking through these things that have felt kind of like compartmentalized in how I was raised or how, you know, culture has taught me to handle these things, is to say like, oh, money isn't a part of living a spiritual life or something like that, right? And like, I think it's been really important for me to learn to like incorporate that. And so I was just curious if it could be spoken to about the 3P approach and perspective on the running of an organization and the hierarchy of an organization and the money aspects of it. If that's something that is, I don't know how that shows up here, how that's handled here and approached here. And I'm sure we don't have time for it right now, but that's my question.
Who's taking that one? Who's taking that hot potato?
I can take that one. I've been a member of a number of different groups. The 3 principles support groups are autonomous. They set up themselves. Each group makes their own decisions on how they're going to handle things. There is no hierarchy. There is no parent organization. I think you know, Chris said it well, that we go for the feeling, and whatever we feel is going to be the best way to share the feeling is what we do. And if, you know, if money is a concern, they set up a system for that. If it's not, and they just trust the person gets trusted, and they pay the church. There are very little expenses involved in a meeting. We don't have a lot of literature. We don't have a lot of parental organizations to support. So it's usually just collecting enough money to rent the room from the church or wherever we're doing it. And it takes care of itself. The beauty of the 3 principles is things just flow. When you're doing the right thing for the right reasons in the moment, they take care of themselves. It's not the way we're brought up, you know, and it's really hard for an old cynical banker to let go of this and trust this. But it's working pretty good. We've had the group I've been doing for over 10 years now, and it's never been an issue. So I hope that helps.
Can I add
Thank
something
you,
too?
Ned.
Can I add something?
Please, Amir, please.
Kimmy, what I've noticed being around the principals is the principals practitioners are terrible with money. Honestly, they're the worst. I mean, they're like, and I'll tell you why. Because that's such an afterthought for so many people in this community. I've been in so many communities, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, to be honest with you, but I will tell you, there's no such thing as, you know, people in the principles, how are they with money? People in the principles have a lot of thinking about money. People not in the principles have a lot of thinking about money. People in the principles sometimes don't have thinking around the money. I will tell you, as far as the community is concerned, because you said AA is very transparent and things like that. This group really has nothing to hide. It's kind of cool because and I'll tell you, just because I was in all the group meetings that they've had for this thing, is a lot of times it's like, well, what about the people that can't afford it? Do you know how many times that came up? Like, it came up so many times because like Joe is one of them, Amy, and they want everyone to figure this out. So we could actually use someone that would be like, all right, folks, we're going to get this out, but we also need to find a way to make enough money to get it more out in the world. Because at the end of the day, like I was telling you, it's really secondary for us. And as you can tell from this group alone, you know.
Just one other quick thing is, Kimmy, we had several organizations who donated money to get the ball rolling on this conference, to make the website, print out all the materials we were going to have if it was live, etc. So people of goodwill who are behind this, there's a lot of generosity and not much thought about money, to be honest. What I've found in my life is that when I'm following my inspiration and my heart, the money kind of takes care of itself. There's a flow to all of that, and we're very well provided for. We always have everything we need, and it always seems to work out without worrying about it. And that's from a young man raised by a very tight Scotsman. So.
Enough of the insults to the Scots.
Christian, we're both Scottish,
So the last question I think for this session is Anne. And then I think we need to stop for the break. But people will be hanging out over the break, and if you've got any burning issues, and there's also, can I just remind you the opportunity if you want to sort of get a one-to-one with someone, that I think we can arrange that. So Anne, over to you. Can you unmute yourself when you get a chance?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, great. This question, and due to the sake of time, it might be answered in the next panel with Joe, but it's come up a lot. So I'm an LADC, and the mental illness that is plaguing us right now, especially with COVID, it keeps coming up to get into the feeling. And I get that, and this workshop is so, my heart is just busting open. I don't know if you can see me, but I sit with my heart wide open with everybody that's sharing and all the information that's coming. So when somebody is in that first stage of recognizing their thoughts and having to get into the feeling, and yet maybe on medication, and maybe so in their anxiety, so in their depression, bipolar, I sometimes, in my own view, get caught up with how do they feel that realistically, if that makes sense. Like, I want them to be able to get more in tune with their feelings, and yet if their feelings are so wrapped up in their thoughts, maybe right now I'm answering my own question. I would love some feedback on that. I know it's got to be the process, but when they're in that early stages and they're still on their medications, that can sometimes I think skew the true feeling. And so I'd love some feedback on that.
And that's a perfect segue to this afternoon's conversation.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about, we have 4 treatment centers that are going to talk about the different ways that they approach this, because most of them have a detox program, a psychiatrist, medical professional, help people get balanced in their meds. They go different programs do this differently, but we meet people where they're at. You have to start where a person is. Jacqueline, how she did that in the prisons is very different than in a treatment center, probably because they're a captive audience. And there's some outpatient programs. There's many, many different ways, but we'll talk about that in more depth this afternoon. I'm really thrilled to have so many great examples of treatment centers who have been foundational in the 3 principles over for many years. Talking this afternoon.
Beautiful, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for the question, and Joe, excellent, beautifully fielded, and that probably brings us to the end of what you're calling this morning's sessions, but actually in Scotland, at the centre of the universe, is tea time. So thanks everybody who contributed this morning, Joe, Amy, Beverly, Greg, Chris, Amir, Ned, Jacqueline, and last but not least, Barbara. So I hope I haven't missed anybody. And thank you all for all the questions and just for being here. And see you all after the almost 1.5 hour break. We've eaten into it a little bit. So, but I think we'll all be, many of us will be hanging out over the break as well. Joe.